it's really hard to replace your income with rental income. I would not suggest quitting your job and just living on that in case a roof goes out or AC goes out. You need that active and passive income on the side. Kind of suggest at least getting a single family or two out of your way. You're just going to learn the process of underwriting and getting in and connecting with contractors and title. It really just kind of depends on what your goals are.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Light It Up podcast. If you're new to this channel and you want to know everything about making money in real estate, selling, sales skills, building your business, or investing, then subscribe below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know what makes our great guests so successful.
And we get texts and emails every single day from people just like you wanting to learn more about the real estate business. So whether you're new or looking to elevate your business, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us a DM. Happy to help.
All right, guys, let's jump right into it. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry and what you're working on today.
Yeah, so I got started just investing in real estate on the side in 2014, 2015. Nothing special. Had a full-time job and wanted to buy some rental properties. So kind of started to do it on evenings and weekends and get the ground underneath me kind of figured out. And then 2018, I went full-time and kind of been going crazy since then. So now I have 4 real estate investing companies, the property management company, a rental company, a flipping company, and an education company. So now I do real estate all day, every day. It went from a side hustle to a full damn thing.
From 0 to 100 real quick. I like it.
Well, it's impressive what you've built. And you said you just went really full-time 2018? Yeah. Wow.
Yep, 2018.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to dig into it a little bit deeper. We're going to first hit you with the lightning round, a couple questions just to get to know you a little bit better.
They're very deep and intimate. So
this question actually says deep at the top.
Does it really?
I'm going to start here.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Sam, what is a mistake people often make about you?
Most people think that I had like some type of silver spoon or rich parent or something to scale at the level I had. They don't understand the power of truly leveraging from nothing.
So no trust fund, no,
Not that I know of. Maybe.
No one gave you $3 million to just, sort of dabble?
Nope, not at all. My dad is actually a private lender, but he just became one last year, and he gave me $75,000. So I've done everything without any help from the parents, and it's a loan. It's still not given to me.
I like that. What chance encounter changed your life forever?
I would probably say just meeting my business partner. So everything I have, my 285 rental doors, my 300 house flips a year, my education, everything I have is 50-50 with my middle school friend. We were friends since middle school, so over 20 years. So I would say that has had a big impact on me, having, your best friend at your side for 25 years and then building, 3 multi-million-dollar businesses with him. It's been pretty cool.
That's like, what's the position? Like, what does he do?
So I'm kind of more of like the sales marketing. He's more of the operations and structure. He was an engineer. I was a sales guy. So you can kind of get where the yin and the yang come into play, but we're 50-50 in everything we own. So
got it. So you're lighting shit on fire and he's figuring it out on the back end after.
Exactly. I lay shit on fire. He figures it out, or he says, "Hey, go buy this apartment complex at this number." I hadn't run an ounce of underwriting. I just trust him. Say, "All right, I'll go buy it less than that," kind of thing.
Got it. All right, cool. Well, again, I'm excited to hear more about that. What was the hardest decision you ever had to make?
The hardest decision I ever had to make was, looking back, it's easy, but at the time, you never know. But it's quitting my job. I was making $250,000 a year as a sales manager at 29 years old, and everything was looking pretty good at the company. I didn't even hate the job, but deciding to leave that and go full time into real estate, and I usually get eye rolls with that, but it's a lot harder to replace a $250,000 job than a $60,000 job. So there was quite some risk there, and the idea of doing that and giving up a sure safe thing for, I thought, for something that was going to be bigger, but there's still that chance. So that was a pretty tough decision to make, but I usually just make them and move on and don't look back a ton. So I'm sure there's other ones, but that's the first one that popped up.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
The quicker you make decisions, the more decisions you get to make, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes just making a decision is the right one.
Yeah. Sam, tell me, if you had to spend a whole day with someone, dead or alive, who
KIRO's
would it be?
notorious for this question.
He just cockblocked my question. Who would it be and why?
All right, so I don't want to be too cliche here, but I would probably say like either Musk or Rockefeller. I think they're both way smarter than me. I heard Hormozy say if he could have dinner with four people, it'd be Jesus, Buddha, Musk, and Rockefeller, just so he could learn from those guys and he could utilize Rockefeller's knowledge in today's world with Musk, because he's probably the only one that could understand it. But so I'll just pick one of those guys out there, and I'll just say Musk. He seems like an absolute nutsack, but a very rich nutsack.
It's a nutsack you want around, that's for sure. So
That's good, man. It always tells us a lot about somebody when the way that they answer that. Some people say like, my mother, she passed away when I was just a kid. Other people say like an Elon Musk or a Rockefeller. And then we've even had people who are like Eddie Van Halen. So
Rockefeller's my guy. So John rolled his eyes as soon as you said it. I'm
no,
like,
it wasn't
"That's
an
my
eye roll.
boy."
It wasn't an eye roll. It was just like KIRO's gonna
Geek out.
focus in on this.
No. But it's interesting because what you built is pretty awesome, right? And it's pretty significant. Now you're teaching people how to do it. I think one of the biggest things in today's marketplace with a tighter inventory, not being able to find deals, how to structure everything it seems very difficult, but it's possible, and you just need to find the knowledge. So if you had to walk us through how to identify a deal, structure a deal, close on a deal, how would you teach us, coach us through that?
Yeah, so it's tougher to find deals right now, but it's not impossible. So many people have the recency bias and lack of perspective is the best, cleanest way to say it. From 2020, maybe actually probably 2018 to 2022, that was like the golden age. Deals were falling off of cliffs. You could buy a property, overpay, over rehab, and still make 40 grand because the house fucking went up 20,000 or 20% over an 8-month period. Like, that is not normal. That's never probably going to happen again. We're never going to get prices increasing, rent increasing, deals coming out the wazoo, and 3% interest. I'm sorry, it's just not that simple. So many people made a lick back then, but what it is now is getting more normal. You have to work, you have to grind, you have to be creative, you have to do things and figure out solutions for tricky situations. It's just wealth came too easy for a while, and people don't understand that. So that aside, my rant aside, how you find distressed deals and how we do it is we buy 300 houses a year, wholesale most of them, flip some of them, and a majority of what we find is through connections with wholesalers and real estate agents. Now, we do direct to seller marketing. We can get into that, but building relationships with real estate agents. You guys talk a little bit about that at the beginning. A really good agent's going to do 20, 25 transactions a year, and a really good agent that's doing that many, obviously some do more, but they're going to have one or two a year that are just funky, right? Don't want to do a showing, hoarder house, won't pass inspection, super outdated, and that's harder for them to sell than that normal clean deal. So they bring you that harder deal. You're the easy button, you're the non-contingency, you're the non-inspection, and they can get both sides of the commission. So just being around other people and letting them know your value add, whether it be rehabbing, whether it be quick close, whether it be whatever, whether it be you're not scared of foundation repairs, whatever it is, getting your value add out to as many people as possible, preferably people that are in front of deals, wholesalers, real estate agent, mold remediators, insurance agents, elder law attorneys, all these people that have just a big sphere of influence. When life happens and one of those, every once in a while, a small percentage is just a crappy situation with the house or the seller, they call you. So that's, there's a million different ways to do it. I could tell you driving for dollars or bandit signs, but just in general, that's the widest net possible. Just start to get that out. And then just underwriting a deal, you just got to be conservative and keep emotion out of it. You got to figure out what you think it's worth after it's fixed up. You got to multiply that by 70 or 75%, and then you got to minus out not your repairs, but your costs. So many people do the repairs. You have to include your money costs, you have to include your utilities, your taxes, your insurance, all your closing costs, all of the costs from close to close or close to refinance. You have to include all of that in there. So I feel like I took that a little bit off the rail, try to put some nuggets in there, but that's generally, and we can get into a specific deal if you want, whether it be house or apartment complex. But in general, I feel like that's the best piece of advice for somebody that's new wanting to get into the game.
Got it. Yeah, I was just going to say that you covered a lot there. And a lot of people, it's interesting, a lot of people will tell you, especially people that are in your position that are trying to just, buy, hold, create a portfolio or wholesale, create these connections with realtors, because listen, if you're going direct to seller, it's great. And oftentimes you can find yourself a great deal, but how many deals is that one seller going to give you? Probably one, right? Most people just own one house. They'll give you one deal and then you move on. Create these connections with realtors or people who are active in your market, wholesalers and insurance people and whatever. And maybe they could be bringing you like, what would you say an average realtor or your top realtor connection brings you per year? 5, 10, 15 deals?
Yeah, I'd say 5 or 10. The same with wholesalers. So we bought 312 houses last year, and 200 and like I think 53 of them were from $0 in marketing spend through wholesalers and real estate agents and connections that we make. We call it the gravy train. If you can spend some time befriending these people, just get 5 real estate agents and 5 wholesalers. It's tough to manage more than that, and you're going to have people you don't gel with. But spend the next 6 to 12 months developing 10 solid relationships, and that's probably, if they're the right people, that's probably 40 to 60 leads a year and 5 to 10 house buys a year. And the beautiful thing is with agents, like you don't have to build that rapport. Direct to seller's tough. You have to build rapport. You have to get their, you have to gain their trust. You have to do all that when you bring an agent. The agent's like, I love this guy. He's closed before. He'll treat you right. He'll give you a fair offer. Boom. You're like, those walls come down right away. And with wholesalers, it's already locked up. So you just have to, say, does your number work or not? Or, hey, can I get a little bit less? And, you're done. You don't even have to connect with anybody. So it's such an easier path, but it's harder at first. So very few people are willing to push off that, gratification. They want to spend money, or they don't want to spend the time developing those relationships, even though in the long run, it's a much better use of your time.
Sure. So are you a licensed agent or no?
I am a licensed agent. Yes, I don't, really use it besides MLS access, and I didn't even list my personal house that I sold a couple years ago. I just had my broker list it. But yeah, I don't do the traditional side, but I do have my license.
Right. So when you quit your full-time job in sales, you specifically went into the investment side of things. It's not like you were dabbling in like being a listing agent for a bit.
Correct. No, I've listed a few, for relatives and my in-laws and a few things like that a few times here and there, but I'd say I've probably done 6 or 7 transactions since I got my license in 2014. So I got my license, while I had a full-time job as well. So yeah, not very often, and not in the past 3 years, and probably never again.
Yeah, a lot of people say they'd rather just not have it. Well, if they're focusing on investments. So like KIRO was saying, let's walk through a deal.
Yeah, but before you say that, though, the one thing that you said that's actually so people don't think about it is underwriting essentially the close to close or the close to refinance, because I always find myself in that situation. I'm like, oh, this is a perfect burr, right? And then you calculate the numbers. It's like 70% of ARV. I've taken away only construction costs, and I'm like, all right, acquisition needs to be X. And I'm like, wait, but when you tag on this cost and that cost and that cost, I'm like, wait, the deal doesn't make sense anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and the hardest thing is not, especially in a market where you're very rarely coming by those kind of deals, your emotions are like, well, we can make a little bit of an exception here. And the problem is also, and I wonder what you would say about this before you walk us through a deal, is how do you assess, like, if you're in an upward market and deals that didn't make sense 6 months ago are like slam dunks today, how do you assess that foresight? Do you calculate that in there, or you're going in for today?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So usually we try to be as conservative as possible and not really put any like future growth into the deal. That's kind of cherry on top. That makes a good deal a great deal. Yeah. And to try to keep numbers out of it. But I say that, but we have bought some bigger deals, some apartment complexes based on future growth, which most people will tell you not to do, and I would probably tell you not to do. But as long as it cash flows, just simply, it's a 12 unit, let's say, and we want to cash flow net after everything, like 150, $200 a door after everything. But right now we can buy it and we can cash flow $30 a door. But rent's super low. They don't need a ton of repairs, so we're going to cycle people out and get rents up to where they should be. And within 18 months, we can be cash flowing $230 a door, like really, really quick return. So we will have done that and have done that, and it has worked out, because when it comes to multifamilies, as you guys probably know, it's based on income. It's not really based on the market. So you can really control that growth. So you can manipulate. Exactly. You can force that growth and appreciation. So we have done that on something we have a little more control over, but not on the houses, because that's pretty much market driven, obviously.
Sure.
Cool. Okay. Now, going back to what John was saying, so let's say you find a good deal, and let's just use a a building, right? So let's say it's a 6-unit building, you find it. Is there a way to creatively finance it, to creatively buy it? How would that structure look like from beginning to end?
Yeah, for sure. So we've done this on, I always tell people you can use the BRRRR method and get creative financing with any asset class that produces cash and has potential to growth in value. So we've done it with apartment complexes, self-storage facilities, commercial buildings, and mainly obviously single family rentals. But let's say it's a 6 unit. So, let's say it's a 6 unit. For simple math, that's $1 million. So what we would do and have done with different numbers and different price points, but $200,000 down payment from a private money lender. So that private money lender comes in with a $200,000 down payment. We take the debt side to a small local bank and they finance at 80%. So we're 100% financed.
Let's
on
break that down real quick. I don't want to kill your flow. Why are you
You're
using
good.
a small local bank rather than? I mean, I
they're
think
gonna require
I understand what
70-75.
I think, but I'm just tell for the people out there. Why
Yeah,
are you
for
using
sure.
a small local bank? Is it because of a relationship, and then the private money lender? We'll go into that.
Yeah, it's mainly because of the relationship. It's a great point. It's mainly because of the relationship and the ease of use. We've used some Freddie money before, way more hoops, way more jumps. The bigger banks want way more. These small local banks, we have lines of credit. We have millions of dollars of loans with them with our houses and our single family rentals. So it's just literally a phone call. Yep, we're good, done, move on. And let's say the interest rate's a little bit higher or this or that. We're not worried about that. I'm in it for the long term because we can get into it later. Some of these things these small local banks have done like blow my mind. They don't have these federally little boxes to check to sell off on the secondary market. So they're so flexible. It's not even funny. They can almost make up their own rules to a certain degree. So
Right.
that is why it's all about that relationship. And then that is why. And then usually I think KIRO mentioned it. Usually you can get less down payment with a small local bank because they're more flexible than a bigger bank.
And they've got your tax returns. They've got your anything that you don't have to start over from square one. Good. So you got
Correct.
that relationship.
I text the owner of the bank and he calls me and says, "Yeah, we're good," kind of thing. That's literally what happens. That you can't really do that with any big bank.
Okay. Now, the private money lender for the $200,000, are you always going to private money? Or are you like, this one we're going to use our own money? Or are you always using someone else's?
We're always using somebody else's. I think at some point we may get into the like LP side of things with bigger deals or use our own money. But we literally went from 0 to 45 million in 8 years, and probably I would say 35 of that 40 million have been in the past 3. So it's pretty tough to do that when you're using your own money. And
Wow.
we have an education company that we're putting money into. We have 46 employees now between our companies. So we're just growth mode, dumping back in, and then gradually increasing our lifestyle and taking money to have fun and do things with. So that's the reason why I think eventually we won't ever, always use other people's money, but it's just so much more scalable. Even if you do really, really well for yourself, you're not going to be able to do that much. I think I did a post the other day on making 250 grand a year. If I save 20% of that and save $50,000 and put that down on a house, that's really good money. And saving $50,000 is incredible every single year. I would have 5 houses in 5 years. And the past 5 years, I've probably bought 90 houses, that I've capped as rentals, and 5 apartment complexes. It's just, even if you make a lot of money, there's still, your ceiling is very, very low.
Yeah.
If your goal is to scale and become crazy nutsacks like us and own an NBA team, then you have to use other people's money for a long time.
So 200 grand, who's that come from? A guy at the country club? What is it from? 3 people, 4 people? And what kind of return? What kind of return are you paying them?
Yeah, for sure. So people think private lenders, they think like rich parent, rich aunt, rich uncle. That's rarely the case. It's just normal people that are insurance agents or connections you're making anyway. Real estate agents, engineers, whatever they are. They're just people with an extra $50, $100, $200,000 that they self-direct against their IRA. They borrow against their 401k. They have money in the bank. They're usually in their 50s and 60s. They're the W-2 people that just want to diversify a little bit. They trust you. They believe in real estate, and you give them a sweetheart of a deal, which we can talk about. But these private lenders are just normal, everyday people. Everybody just tries to look for this super rich person with $10 million in the bank, and they say, "I can't find a private lender. Darn, I'm just not going to do this." You just have to get creative and understand it's just somebody with a little bit of extra money. Now, for something that $200,000 point is probably just one person. We have, I would say, 10 private lenders that we've been able to develop relationships. It's some of my dad's friends. It's some people that we've just met through business. It's just local people that we've met around. It's nobody with millions and millions and millions of dollars. We have a few of those connections now, but that was 6 years down the line.
Yeah.
And talking about structuring it, how we structure it, we've done it different in every single one. Sometimes that 20% down just gets preferential interest. Sometimes we give up a little bit of ownership until we refinance and pay them back. It's just a long-term BRRRR deal where that $1 billion property we just talked about, we increase the value, bump up rents, like I said, make it much more valuable, and then it appraises 2 years later for 1.35 or 1.4. We do a cash out refinance and pay back their 200 grand plus interest. So that's how we pay them back. And we can get into it, but we've structured it, different as far as returns, full, 10% preferential interest. We've done, 6% preferential interest. And then on the buyout, we give them another 6% to get their return to 12% annualized. Like, there's so many different ways you can do it with private lenders. That's the beauty of them. They're relational.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome.
Okay. So local bank for the 80%. You guys are private money lender for 20%. Now you've got the equity and the debt lined up.
So how would you underwrite? So what would be the structure? You want to make sure that you can force value to get it to a certain debt service to qualify for the 1.3, 1.4 in that 18 2-year mark?
Yeah, so basically we just look at where we can create efficiencies. And a lot of times these properties are, a little mom and pop, a little more old school. So we get efficient with expenses. I say that and everybody says, oh, you're not taking care of the tenants. No, we take better care of the tenants. We just have technology. Yeah. We're efficient with our maintenance. We figure out things like that. So we take better care at less cost usually. And if we can't do that, then we probably won't buy it. But then the other side of it, usually the side of it is they're low on rent. We're increasing the income somehow, either by raising rent, by charging back utilities or things like that. We're able to increase that net income spread. And it's just a formula. It's just that cap rate formula that's going to tell you the value of the property. So we just run pro formas at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. And at some point in that 5 years, we're going to be able to pay them back. That's what we always tell them. It's been like 2.5 years recently, and maybe with interest rates and things, maybe it's going to be more like 4 years, but we're pretty conservative that within that 5 years, we're going to be able to create enough equity to be able to pay them back based on the net income increase that we're confident we'll be able to get with, lowering expenses and increasing rent.
Got it. Okay. I love that. So, all right, entry-level investor, somebody who's trying to quit their job, right? It sounds like the asset class.
Or just do this on the side.
Yeah, the asset class that sounds like you prefer is probably single families, or is that what you were leaning towards initially?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can get into multis pretty quick. I always kind of suggest at least getting a single family or two out of your way. You're just going to learn the process of underwriting and getting in and connecting with contractors and title, title people and title attorneys and things like that. So I think single family is the best first option just because it's the most liquid. You can wholesale it, you can flip it, you can rent it. There's a ton of buyers for it on the investing side, on the retail side. So I think it just makes most sense. It's easiest to grasp at first, but then you can get in multis pretty quick. I think, I love to have a mixture of both. We have 135 apartment doors and 145 single family rentals. So we, split up pretty good there, 50-50. So it really just kind of depends on what your goals are. The one thing I would say that I've realized over the past couple of years that I didn't when I was into this was it's really hard to replace your income with rental income. That, how I'm saying to do it with the BRRRR method and everything, $200-300 a month per door cash flow. It's really tough if you're trying to get to $5,000 a month income. That's what you make every year, 60 grand. If you get to $5,000 a month through with, however much that is, 20, 25 rental properties, I would not suggest quitting your job and just living on that in case a roof goes out or AC goes out. So I've really been telling people through social media, my students, that you need that active and passive income on the side. And I know it's a lot of work to kind of do that, but a couple wholesales a year, 1 flip a year and 2 wholesales a year can be that 60 grand. And then you can grow your rentals more aggressively and not have to dig into that if your long-term goal should be wealth, active and passively. So you're going to have to do a little bit of both. It's really tough to quit your job just on rental income and pretty dangerous, actually, I think.
Yeah.
If you're underwriting a deal, what is a good deal for you guys, cash flow wise? Like if you're looking for something for long-term hold.
So on the single family space, it's that $200 to $300 per door is how we look at it, for a single family rental cash flow. And that's net. That's taking out all your expenses, some CapEx, some vacancy, all, kind of worst case scenario things, and still being able to cash flow a couple $100 a month per door, which doesn't sound super sexy, but I tell people my very first house I bought in 2014, refinanced in 2015. So 8 years ago, it was worth $125. We owed $100. Well, now it's worth $225 and we owe $70. So we have $155,000 in equity in just 8 years. And that's that's higher than the average 401k in this country. So just that one rental property I bought that I was getting my own money, you got to have some perspective and look a little bit longer term.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting 100 grand in my bank account tomorrow, but very quickly it adds up, and you get tax-free cash flow, and you get depreciation, and you can velocitize, I don't think that's a word, that wealth by just stacking more and more rental properties on. Then it really adds up.
Yeah. And I guess in your underwriting, you have to, I've never used private money. You have to underwrite, obviously you're paying the interest on the debt, and then you're paying the interest on the private money. So the cash flow's got to be even better.
Yeah, I mean, for a single family, yeah, you're refinancing out of that private money, and you just have that long-term debt. So upon that refinance, you're getting out of that private money because you want to get out of there as quickly as possible. But for the long-term stuff, though, the apartments, yeah, you kind of really got to make sure the cash flow is there. And what we've done to combat that is, I think our last deal, we gave 12% annualized return, but just 5% from cash flow, and then the other 7% on the buyout. So we just have to beef that equity up a little bit longer to be able to give them that totalized 12% return. It's less of a tax burden currently right now with them. So there's benefits.
It's weighted
to it
on
as
the
well.
back end or the exit. Not
Yeah,
the exit,
exactly.
but the refi.
So yeah, so well, the exit, yeah, for them it is, yeah, exactly. So that's where you can play with things and get a little bit. This deal is not as cash flow heavy up front, but it's a great deal, so we'll do this. Or sometimes it's a little more cash flow heavy up front, or however the situation looks. It's all different. All 6 deals have been structured slightly different.
And that local lender doesn't care that the down payment's not coming from you because you're purchasing it with an LLC.
Yeah, first with LLC, the relationship's built. They don't even look where the money comes from. They don't care.
Right.
That's that relationship that I was talking about earlier is why we go with them, because they're just so flexible.
Right, because a lot of times if you use a big bank, of course, and 50 grand just appears in your bank account and you say, I'm using this as my down payment, they say, we need a,
Well, that's for like a primary purchase too. So
right,
when you're doing a commercial, but the private investor is not putting a lien. They probably collateral is something else, right? So it could be another residence that you own or something else. So that way it doesn't come in. The lender's not holding second position; they're holding first position, right?
Yeah, and the bank's always going to hold that first position.
Yeah.
So some of our lenders will want to hold second and be okay with it, even though it's second position.
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Not very rarely gets paid, but it's just kind of almost a vanity thing. But some of them want to hold second with a lien until they're paid back, and some of them don't care. We're personally guaranteeing the freaking thing anyway, so that once we're willing to, if we're not putting our own cash in the game, we're willing to put our ass on the line and do a personal guarantee.
Yeah. The misconception people probably have is that when you're in growth mode, you're not looking for cash flow, you're looking for leverage, and that's what you're doing, right? So like in 2 years from now, you'll refi out of those. You'll probably get 10% out of the whole worth of the portfolio, and you can double it down on something else. You're never going to be stable in cash flow when you're in growth mode until you're saying, okay, great, now let's slow down, maybe sell half of the portfolio, pay off the other half. Now you're cash flowing, you're chilling. You can do whatever the hell you want to do at that point. I guess my question to you then, if you're talking about the daily to support the lifestyle, you're talking about really the flips and the wholesales. So for the wholesales, how do you properly walk through, like if we were brand new in the business, we had no idea how to structure a wholesale, what to do, how would you teach us or coach us through it?
Yeah, so you're going to be, finding these distressed properties, and you got to be really good at figuring out what the property is going to be worth after it's fixed up. That's the first thing. There's, the max allowable offer formula we'll kind of briefly walk through, but the biggest things you're going to need to know is what the property is going to be worth fixed up, and then how much it's going to take it to get to that point. Once you know those two things and you're conservative with those, you should never be in very much risk at all. Now, of course, crazy things can happen, but if you know those two numbers and you're certain at those, you'll be just fine. So figuring out the house's worth, once it's fixed up, there's some art, there's some science, there's some math to it. Just figuring out, looking in the area and finding houses that are like your house but fixed up, what they just sold for. Well, that's what yours is going to sell for, because that's what the bank, the landlord, the rehabber, that's what they're going to look at, is what our current house is selling for in the area. So get as recent sale as possible what your same house fixed up is worth in the area, and then you got to be able to figure out what it costs to fix it up, what it costs to do the roof, the painting, the flooring, all those kind of things. So there's some effort that goes into it, but once you figure that out, so if a house is worth $100,000 fixed up, it needs $20,000 in work. Simple math to keep it simple. So 100,000 times 75% is 75,000. So you're doing ARV times 75% minus repairs. So 100,000 times 75% is 75,000 minus 20,000 repairs. You buy that house for 55,000, and then you should be fine. And then you can obviously build in wholesale fees and things like that. So
Right.
you just have to get really good at knowing those two things, and it's not something that happens overnight. It takes practice on fake deals. It takes practice on real deals. It takes shadowing somebody else that's doing it. But once you get a feel for those two things, you can walk in a house and give a really solid offer with a contingency if you want to give yourself more security, and then try to sell it.
Yeah. Now, the term that they're using for assigning the contract is and/or assignee. Now, for somebody who dips their feet into this and starts going through the repetition, we're in an attorney state. So attorneys get in there and they give their opinions and they start muddying the waters. What are some terms that they should be absolutely have in the contract when they're going through the wholesale?
As far as like contingencies and things like that?
Yeah, so like and/or assignee, what terms should they have in there that would protect them to be able to sign it over? Like, for instance, John just dealt with this the other day. That's why I'm bringing it up, where the attorney was like, you can't assign this. So it's the LLC that's buying it or you're buying it. And he was like, all right, well, how do I figure this way around it?
Okay. That's a good question. Luckily, we are not in an attorney state in Missouri. So where I'm at, everything we do is, it's just through title companies, and in our contract, it says it has the right to, assign at any point, kind of thing. So just having so a couple things you're going to want in there is terminology that will allow you to assign the contract over. And the other thing you potentially want in there is contingencies to allow you to not perform on the contract if you don't sell it. And the biggest thing for that is having transparent contingencies. Make sure the seller knows about it. Don't hide away from it. Don't tell them. Don't let them know, 10-day contingency, day 9, you call them, say, I can't find a buyer, I'm backing out, and they're pissed at you. Don't do that. Make sure they know about it. Most sellers are okay with it. But as far as the language goes, having a transparent contingency to give you options if you need them, if you can't close on it. And then, having some type of assignee clause in there if you're doing that. And some states are good with that and double closing. Some states aren't. So there's every state's a little bit different, attorney states and laws and certain things. So probably not the best answer for that one, especially because we have it so easy here in Missouri.
Yeah, attorneys just screw up everything. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Well, on traditional deals, they slow things down. On like a normal retail deal, they slow things down.
Yep.
And, I guess wholesales, they just get way too involved. But
Yeah.
I think that's helpful.
I literally negotiated a deal the other day and it went through attorney review. And then I'm trying to push the deal along. I called the seller's attorney. I'm like, hey, can we push this along? He's like, oh, you're the one that submitted that offer? Ha, low ball. We're not interested. And hangs up. I'm like,
Meanwhile, the seller is telling him he's good to go.
yeah. I'm like, wait, what? So I reach out to the seller. The seller's like, yeah, I don't know why my attorney thinks it's a low offer. I'm like, are you serious right now? And it was like the most frustrating thing in the world. So yeah, attorneys in attorney states ruin deals with their opinions, which sucks.
Did you get it? Did you get the deal?
Well, this literally happened the other day.
Okay, wow. Yeah, gosh, I would hate that. That would very much frustrate me.
Sam, knowing what you know now, what would you do different? Are you guys still buying the one families?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still
A lot of people stack these one families. I'm sorry, I hijacked my own question.
Go ahead.
A lot of people stack these one families, then they say, shit, I wish I started buying multifamily earlier, and then they start getting rid of the single families. But it seems like you guys are still gung-ho on one families.
Yeah, no, we love them both. I like the diversification. I go back and forth which ones I like more. Single families are so great. You can ride a hot market. The tenant base is great. They're a little more liquid usually. You can borrow against them a little bit easier, and multifamilies can scale and grow quicker. So I love them both. I think if we didn't have a flipping company, we would probably maybe focus more on multifamilies. But we have this flipping company, this machine, this 20-person company that buys and sells 300 houses a year. We have, 4 full-time buyers, a dispositions, a rehab crew, a contract to close, marketing, sales manager, all of these things going on, this machine working in the background, and they're just deals come across our plate that work great as burrs. We can, get in and out quickly, refinance and add that house that's going to, double in value in 15 years, and just keep stacking those in the background as we're looking for the multis and the future developments and things like that we're looking into. So that's one of the reasons, probably not the only reason, but I love singles. And then also, we have this machine doing it, so might as well utilize it and pick off the rentals that make sense for us. And our team picks off rentals too. We have almost 500 doors in our office as far as our team. Our rehab manager has 35 rentals himself, so we have a pretty good culture of landlords here.
Good. And then back to that original question, anything you would have done different?
Yeah, probably bought more when it was 2000. I mean, I feel like we bought as much as we could, but I still think from 2017, 2022, looking back in 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, gonna be like, that was like the best 5 years ever to buy real estate. Now with hedge funds getting in the space, Wall Street money, AI technology, all this stuff, it's still going to be possible to buy deals, but I don't know if it's ever going to be easier. And of course, a recession or a crash might change that a little bit, but I don't see that anytime soon, especially with the things I mentioned, technology and Wall Street money. I think the floor is pretty high as far as where house values will go. So maybe bought a little bit more then. And I'm not one of those guys that's like everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad everything perfect as I'm meditating and floating. But I do think I did learn a lot from my mistakes along those lines. But I guess maybe I wish I would have started a little bit quicker and maybe been a little more aggressive at the onset. But we changed that pretty quick and got aggressive once we saw the power of things.
Yeah. In 2022, what were some of the struggles or challenges that you saw in the marketplace for you guys?
Well, so we were just talking about this earlier on my podcast, and we were saying that Luke's and I were talking, and we were talking, obviously interest rates went up so rapidly. They were seemed like every other day, Powell was like 0.5%.
Yeah.
And just things were going crazy, and people were seeing that. They were nervous about the future. They were scared a little bit. And then also they're living in a house they have a mortgage of 3.5%. They sell it. And if they don't have to sell it, then they're going to get something less valuable for more money because of the interest rate. So, so I just the people not moving and not as many transactions in the investing space going on went from selling to landlords to now selling to flippers because cash flow is a little bit harder. So just navigating those waters, and then a big thing in the background that I didn't realize I think was a big deal was inflation. Obviously, inflation was a big deal, but it was freaking 9% at the end of last year, and now people are still mad about it. I get it, but now it's below 5%. And then the core is below 5%, and I think the actual just overall inflation is below 4%. So it's under control-ish. I think it's going to stop going down as rapidly, but I think just understanding all the moving parts, because it was a different time than any other time. There was nothing to reference. House values, interest rate. Usually interest rate goes up, house value goes down, but that's not what happened. So I'm just navigating those waters, I guess, more than anything, and trying to not over leverage or get too bullish on what was coming.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that comes back over and over again is, and it's to acquire more, to grow more, the skill of learning how to raise private money is so crucial. I feel like that's like the biggest thing, because every time you're trying to underwrite a deal or whatever the case it is, you're like, what kind of leverage can I put in here? And if you don't have the leverage of capital available through private funds, not just through institution funds, through private funds, it ruins everything. Because right now there's a lot of people who have commercial loans that are either about to be called or whatever the case it is, and they're freaking out. And that's like a wealth of opportunity.
I would challenge you on that, though.
Why?
Who doesn't have access to private money?
No, everybody has access to private money, but it's capped out at a certain amount per person, right?
Sure.
So it's like if you are able to build a skill or build an audience where you're able to, like Grant Cardone, for example, he's done an amazing job at crowdfunding. As soon as crowdfunding became legal on like socials platforms, he was like, his wealth went from like 900 million in management to like 2-3 billion, right?
Well, he's genius. I feel like once you get that much of a following and that much of a presence, you can sell anything.
Well, but it's the ability to raise private money is that will exponentially grow everything else, because you can get institutional funding as soon as you have that initial down payment. Grant Cardone leverages all the debt from the purchase that he has. So now he's a billionaire essentially, right? Yeah. From leveraging private money to buy the debt on the billions. Yeah. And that's like the whole thing. So it's so clear as you're saying it. I don't know why my mind kept going to that. I'm just like, I need to get some friends and be like,
but you don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Right now.
We all have 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 or 4 that you could go to if you think really hard about it for your first couple private money deals. And I know when I first started out of college, what I used to do was work for a real estate syndication, and we would raise money from high net worth investors and do real estate syndications. And it was so interesting, and I think you could connect with this, Sam, is that we would have deals. We would have like a lot of like Goldman Sachs, like, investment banker guys that are probably 30 years old that, could put 200 grand in a deal. And I remember we had a guy that could put 200 grand in our first deal. Our second deal, we did big deals, like 10 million bucks, whatever. 200 grand in the first deal, 200 grand in the second deal. And then the next deal, we were like, hey man, this deal is a lot bigger. Like it's going to be a $20 million deal or whatever. And he's like, I'll take the whole equity piece myself. And he gave us like 3 million bucks himself. We had no idea that he had that capacity. So there are people out there, what I'm saying, that you think their capacity is to give you 50 grand, but I bet you they got 400,000, whether it's an uncle, whether it's a, somebody at work. I think we just all have to be, think a little bit more creatively, because a lot of people don't want to do what we want to do, which is actually own the property and deal with the tenants and go through all that painful stuff. They just want to be invested in real estate, but not have the phone calls.
No, I agree with you. And to kind of piggyback on that a little bit to drive it home is, these high net individuals, these accredited, not whatever, these people that have 100 grand, 200, 300 grand, they've done pretty well for themselves. And either through businesses or their job, they generally hang around other people that are similar. That's whatever we're the five, the median of our 5 friends or business people, whatever it is. So, and people have vanity and pride and ego and like, hey, I'm getting these returns on these guys. I'm going to tell it at the golf country club with, just smoking a cigar on the back deck. And, hey, I'm getting this, would you like me to introduce you to these guys? And so it starts to talk. It just kind of starts to have that ripple effect and that snowball effect once you start to get a few good returns, because we've never missed a private lender payment ever. We've not made money on every deal, but we've never missed a private lender return payment for that reason, because we want them to talk, and it just kind of, your community starts to grow and they start to brag, and they're wanting to help their friends, but they're wanting to brag on themselves. Everybody wants that big, nice investment, and I got these guys over here giving me this return over the past 2 years. So yeah, just kind of piggyback off that. Once you get a few, it usually does grow.
Yeah. And yeah, it's one thing that was told to me once. Like, I was finding myself prospecting the same people when I first started in the business. And one of the guys I went out to have lunch with, he was asking me a bunch of questions. I didn't get even to ask him anything until the very end of that meeting. And I was like, hey, if you knew what you knew now, starting all over again, what would you do differently? He was like, well, I would have realized that whether you're doing a 6-family purchase or purchasing $100 million portfolio, the whole thing is exactly the same. It's just the way you look at it is different. So like, imagine having a bunch of people in the private money. You'd be able to acquire something very big, institutional assets, in a much rapider pace. So I feel like that skill set is one of the ones that's like the highest skill set you can get paid for in the marketplace, or, a net value in the marketplace. Sam, one question for you. With everything that you know now, do you have any kids?
I do. I have 2 daughters. Yep.
Okay. Let's say you can give one piece of advice to your 2 daughters, right? And they're like, hey, Dad, what's one piece of advice that I need to know to be successful? What's one skill you tell them to work on over anything else?
It's a good one. I would tell them probably to learn to have perspective. Like, so many people overreact to what's happening now, and they have recency bias, and they don't have like overall perspective. Everybody thinks that the generation that's coming after them is the worst generation ever, and they're going to ruin the world. And like, that we have it worse off now than we've ever had it because of social media and all this stuff. When in reality, 25 years ago, you could smoke on a freaking airplane, or 35 years ago, like, it wasn't that, I guess, in the late 80s, but like, everything is getting better. And if you have some perspective and don't overreact on things that happen, if you keep a steady hand, like I kind of tried to do, I feel like that's a huge advantage over people that react and overreact to situations and things that are happening around the world and in your current environment. So I don't know if it's natural or if that's a skill, not overreacting and having perspective, but I think that's one of my biggest strengths is having perspective and not overreacting when things happen, and not, getting emotional when you just don't need to get emotional. So I don't know if that's a skill or not, but that's something that I'm definitely going to try to instill in them.
Yeah. And that goes back to your sales side, right? Because for you to be able to sell somebody on something, you need to understand their perspective and what they need so you can fill the gap and sell them on it. So it comes full circle as to why you're that salesperson for the team.
There you go. Good point.
Which makes perfect sense.
Awesome.
Cool.
It's a little bit out of context, but one more question for you from me. Are you guys buying anything that's on market, or is it all off market?
Mostly off market. We have bought a couple on market things. We've bought a couple houses off the MLS this year. We tend to buy 5 or 10, just something that's, that's getting ready to expire or has expired, or something that's, way overpriced and nobody's just lowballed them yet. So yeah, a little bit, but mostly off market. I think that's probably going to be the case. There's just so much freaking money out there that's pointed at real estate and eyeballs on it, that anything on the market that's a good deal, I feel like it's going to get sniped up pretty quickly.
Yeah. And what kind of parameter are you guys going from your home base?
We're all in St. Louis, so everything, our flips, or everything we have is, the greater St. Louis metro area. We do have a hotel motel deal that we just bought in Branson, Missouri, which is about 4 hours away, that we're turning into short-term rentals, all the
Sick.
units. But everything else is in St. Louis besides that. I think eventually we'll kind of expand our wings a little bit, but right now we're focused on our backyard for many reasons. But yeah,
So what's that, like a 30-minute drive? Hour drive?
I'd say probably 45 minutes, probably 30 to 45
Good
minutes.
for you. That's a lot to
from our
own in
office.
one area. Good.
But talk about perspective. Lucas and I were just flying back from a mastermind, and we're like, our $50 million in real estate is like that like 3 blocks of like this area. But you know what I mean? Like, St. Louis isn't a big city. It's not a wealthy city, but like, yeah, okay, cool. Beat your chest. We own 50 million, but like that's that little bitty freaking area. That's nothing. So anyways, yeah, so having that as well.
To talk about perspective again too, the perspective of buyers in this marketplace is that if it's on the MLS, it's going to get bidded up. There's literally, I just had a listing and the lady wanted to overprice it. I knew that she needs to sell it 100%. The value in which that we're selling it is probably 30% below what it's listed for. And she was just gun-ho on that specific price point, although she's very desperate to sell it. Not one offer came in because no one was thinking that it would sell below asking.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
So
Just put offers out there, never hurts.
yeah.
Yeah. Who's it? Jerry, Jerry Norton, right? Big wholesale guy. He says just make 5 offers a day. And he's like, it's a numbers game. Make 5 offers a day and you're going to get, a handful accepted at the end of the month. Awesome.
I like it.
Well, Sam, this has been awesome. We really do appreciate it. You spending some time with us today. If anybody wants to reach out, connect with you, join your educational platform. If you want to just give us like the 30-second elevator pitch on that, I want to try to see if we can get you some more coaching clients.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just contact me on social media, whatever social media app you're on. If you're not following me, follow me. Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me in the DMs. And don't worry about the mentorship. Just see if you vibe with my style, what I'm teaching, how I'm teaching it, because that's what I do. On social media, I always joke I don't have a rags to riches story like my buddy Kong. Grew up in a mud hut. I'm not a Filipino Ken doll like my buddy Ryan Pineda. I'm not a nutsack like Grant Cardone. I'm just like a normal dude. So if you vibe with that, then hit me up on Instagram and I can introduce you to the mentorship and just show you a few different things that we're doing. The only bragging point I will say is the mentorship is 16 months old. I have almost 1,300 students and own over 200 million in real estate. So it works if you're willing to put in the effort, time, and energy, but it's not easy. It will show you the simple path, but there's no easy path. So that's kind of my pitch.
Love
Awesome.
it.
Thank
Sweet,
you
man.
so much, man. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.